Good morning. This is Claude Sports Corner. And this morning we're going to talk a little bit NBA basketball and one of my least favorite players. And I do respect him as a basketball player, but I don't respect what he did in going back to Cleveland. And you already know who I'm talking about. It is one slavery time Negro that they call LeBron James. Why do I call him that? Listen, you know the narrative. I wants to go back home. I helped Master Dan Gilbert. I wants to win the title for old Cleveland. After this man totally disrespected him, called him everything but a child of God, even had fans burning his jerseys in effigy. So I have very little respect for him as far as that. And also the Tamir Rice thing. Oh, I have to have all the facts. Yes, seriously. But I digress. As a basketball player, he is a brilliant player, as evidenced by his year so far. And listen, he has taken a huge pounding. He has played more minutes than anybody else in the league, which is saying something considering all the years and all the wear and tear that he's taken. He's averaging 26.8 points a game, 7.9 rebounds, and 8.8 assists. His field goal percentage is a robust 55.1%, and he's even doing well from three this year. He's shooting 35.7 from beyond the three-point line. So LeBron has had an amazing year, especially considering Cleveland has struggled. Now, a lot of that is due to the working in of Isaiah Thomas returning from a horrific injury, which, listen, Boston sold them a bill of goods, but that's another story. I digress. Tristan Thompson has not played the same. Kevin Love is Kevin Love. I mean, he's a very good offensive player. He's an atrocious defensive player. He's a pretty good rebounder. But listen, Kevin Love will disappear in big spots. That's who he is. That's what he is. And J.R. Smith has been god-awful for most of the season. Jay Crowder has been mediocre at best. Now, I'm not as concerned as a lot of people because I feel, listen, this marathon, when you're the Cleveland Cavaliers and a veteran team like they are, you can pace yourself and just get ready for the playoffs. Now, as far as I'm concerned, we all know they're going to make at least one deal. They have to. I don't feel that they will stand pat, and nor should they, because let's face it, if the playoffs started today, do I think they would come out of the East? Yeah. Would they get murdered by Golden State again? Absolutely. In fact, they would get murdered by Houston. I mean, forget Golden State. I don't think they would get past the Spurs myself. Well, that's provided that Kawhi Leonard is healthy and ready to go come playoff time, which is not a given considering his last couple of seasons. But if Cleveland really wanted to shake things up, and I thought about this long and hard. Now, it hasn't been done since Dave Cowens back in the 78-79 season for the Boston Celtics. Ironically, that was the season prior to them getting one Larry Bird, a legendary player. But I think that LeBron James, since, hey, let's face it, he's already a house Negro runaway slave who wanted to come back home to Massa, he might as well do Massa's bidding and become the head coach of the damn team. He should be the player coach. Yes, I said it, the player coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, is that really far-fetched? Absolutely not. And let's face it, the players have most of the power over the head coaches anyway. I mean, that's always been. All you have to do is look at Magic Johnson and his relationship with the Los Angeles Lakers. We all know he got Paul Westhead fired and got Pat Riley in there. Those of us who are old enough to remember that. And this is not, I mean, let's face it, this has happened on several occasions. Michael Jordan got jettisoned I cannot think of his name. Doug Collins, that's his name. He jettisoned him out of there and got Phil Jackson as coach of the Chicago Bulls, which worked out to the betterment of both of them. Now, this again has not happened since 78-79, but it is not uncommon to have seen player coaches. And you know what? A couple of them have excelled. I mean, for example, Richie Guerin was the player coach for the Atlanta Hawks for several years, and he compiled a record of 199 and 173. Now, they did not win any titles, but let's face it, nobody was beating the Boston Celtics of those 60s, and they had to go through Wilt also during that time with the Philadelphia 76ers, and before that, the Philadelphia Warriors, before they moved out to San Francisco. Now, Lenny Wilkens started his Hall of Fame career, and he's in the Hall of Fame as a coach and a player. He was a player coach for the Seattle Supersonics and the Portland Trailblazers, where he compiled a record, and I'm only talking about his record as a player coach, not his overall record. He compiled a record of 159 and 169, which was slightly below 500, which, let's face it, that's what his total career was as a coach. Now, he did win a championship when he became the full-time coach of the Seattle Supersonics back in 1978, if I'm not mistaken. No, it was 79. I digress. In fact, I remember that great backcourt of Gus Williams from my hometown of Mount Vernon, New York, and Dennis Johnson, who he later got rid of and called a cancer. And if you don't believe me, look that up, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Bill Russell, the greatest winner in sports history, forget NBA history. He won 11 championships in 13 seasons. You'll never see that again in any professional sport. He was also the player coach his last 3 seasons with the Boston Celtics, taking over for the late Red Auerbach. He compiled a record of 162 and 83 and won 2 championships. Now, the youngest NBA player coach was the late great Dave DeBusschere, who is more known for his Knicks prowess, but if you remember, he started his career as a Detroit Piston. Now, he had a dreadful record of 79 and 143, but let's face it, the Pistons were a god-awful franchise at that time. And if you remember, it was that great trade for Dave DeBusschere, that in fact, I believe it was Dave DeBusschere for Butch Comives, which turned around the fortunes of the New York Knicks. In fact, the New York Knicks have not been a championship team since. And I mean winning a championship. I know they made it to the finals a couple other times, one with Patrick Loser Ewing, and the second time with Sprewell in Houston, and that team definitely overachieved and was a fun team to watch. Alvin Adams, before he became a championship coach with the Golden State Warriors, at that time they were the San Francisco Warriors, he was a player coach as well, and he compiled a record of 49 and 63. And as I mentioned, Dave Cowens was the very last player coach, and he did that with the Boston Celtics, and he compiled a record of 27 and 41. Now, there were other player coaches that did it for less than a year, like Ed McCauley, who compiled a record of 43 and 19, and also 2 Hall of Famers got their starts as player coaches, Red Holtzman and Dick McGuire. So, again, this would not be out of the realm to do that. And LeBron James is, let's face it, the leader of that team. And to be quite honest, I don't think this team really respects Tyronn Lue as head coach. And we've seen a lot of friction here and there, and a lot of backbiting, and a lot of talk to the press by, and I hate when they hide their names, talking about a source that's been with the team, this, that, and the third. Be a man, stand by your words, and put your name attached to it. Don't be a coward and hide behind the press. But again, I digress. Now, LeBron James, even though I don't really care for him, He is an outstanding player, and he has proven to be a very good leader when it comes to his teams for the most part. And leadership is what this team lacks, along with a real defensive presence. And let's face it, Cleveland has not been a good defensive team in his second stint with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, he is not the same defensive player that he was in Miami. Not to say that he's a bad defensive player, but let's face it, age and attrition has forced LeBron to be more of a free safety than a one-on-one lockdown defender that he was back in the day. And he does show glimpses of that, but he has to pace himself. I can't blame LeBron for not giving a max effort for the full game. He has to pace himself because there's so much that he's asked to do. So again, if I'm Cleveland, I would make LeBron the head coach and fire Tyronn Lue. I mean, that would shake up the team, and there would be no worrying about, oh, well, is LeBron... Listen, we already know he's running the team. You might as well just make it official. And then he can't bitch and moan about, oh, I can't get the pieces around me, because he would have direct input, and let's face it, he already has that as it is, but he would have the direct input to his massa, Dan Gilbert, and he would be able to silence every critic, especially if he wins the championship. As a player coach, he would have done something that Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, any of them, if you want to name Larry Bird, none of them did outside of the great Bill Russell. And he would catapult himself, in my opinion, over Michael Jordan as in being the greatest player of all time. Please like and subscribe, ladies and gentlemen. This was Claude Sports Corner. Take care and God bless.